In a bombshell announcement that's sent shockwaves through royal circles, Kensington Palace has confirmed that Prince William and Princess Catherine are preparing to leave their longtime London residence for a new royal stronghold, sparking whispers of a monumental power shift within the monarchy. As King Charles steps back amid ongoing health concerns, insiders say this move isn't just about real estate. It's a strategic repositioning of Britain's future king and queen. Caught off guard, senior royals, including Princess Anne and Queen Camilla, are reportedly reeling. The Waleses aren't just moving house, they're establishing a new seat of power, and fast. The announcement, heard across the palace walls. The air at Kensington Palace shifted on a brisk Monday morning in October 2025, when the announcement finally came. William and Catherine were preparing to leave their historic London home. A statement released precisely at 9 a.m. BST confirmed the move to a yet unnamed estate, described only as a strategic elevation. For many within the palace, the news landed like a thunderclap. Though rumors had circulated since late summer, few believed plans were already in motion. The Wales household had kept the details closely guarded, even from many senior royals. Behind the scenes, preparations had begun months earlier, coordinated quietly through a circle of 5 senior aides, and with the king's private secretary informed only in mid-September. The level of discretion suggested not just privacy, but political calculation. Courtiers now speak of the announcement as a definitive line in the sand, a declaration that the center of power is subtly but unmistakably shifting. William, long described as the reluctant heir, is now stepping fully into the architecture of command. The relocation is far more than a real estate transaction. It marks a deliberate reframing of roles. Sources within the Privy Council office describe the move as the activation of the heir, with all the symbolic gravity that entails. While Charles III remains monarch, his reduced schedule, partially due to ongoing treatment for an undisclosed illness, has created a void. William and Catherine are no longer filling in. They are, according to insiders, steering the ship. Reactions from other royals have ranged from stunned silence to thinly veiled concern. At Clarence House, the Queen Consort's team was reportedly unaware until hours before the news broke. At St. James's Palace, Princess Anne's advisors scrambled to confirm the implications. The monarchy, a structure built on hierarchy and communication, had fractured, if only for a moment, under the weight of this bold move. As the palace reels from the announcement, the question on everyone's lips becomes, where? The couple's decision to uproot from Kensington is no minor shift. It is a seismic signal of where royal gravity now lies. And in choosing their next home, William and Catherine are not merely selecting bricks and mortar. They are designing the stage for their future reign, drawing clear lines between what was, what is, and what is to come. The new residence. Gone are the whispers of modest cottages or suburban retreats. The Wales' next royal base will not be Adelaide Cottage, nor will it resemble the quieter family hideaways of years past. Reliable sources close to the Lord Chamberlain's office indicate that Windsor Castle and Sandringham House were the 2 final contenders, with the former now reportedly selected. The move to Windsor, historically the seat of wartime resilience and royal continuity, is nothing short of a royal declaration. The choice of Windsor, with its 1,000-year legacy, 539 rooms, and proximity to central London, just 25 miles west, reflects more than logistics. It's an assertion of presence. By leaving Kensington, William and Catherine step out from the shadows of junior royal perception. Kensington, while iconic, has long been associated with public-facing duties and ceremonial appearances. Windsor offers stature, scale, and sovereignty. The grounds alone span 13 acres, fortified with heightened security and primed for hosting foreign dignitaries. Renovation plans, reportedly signed off in early October, are already underway, with an estimated £12 million budget dedicated to refurbishing private quarters, staff offices, and ceremonial halls. Catherine is said to be deeply involved in design choices, blending contemporary aesthetics with heirloom pieces from Queen Elizabeth's personal collection. Rooms formerly used only for state events will now serve as living, working, and symbolic spaces for the future king and queen. This echoes the quiet maneuvering of Queen Elizabeth II during World War II, when she based herself at Windsor to build public trust and symbolically distance herself from the dangers of central London. By occupying Windsor as a full-time royal residence, William and Catherine are sending a similar message. The monarchy's future will be shaped not just in Westminster Abbey, but behind the fortress walls of Windsor, where duty meets destiny. But where there is a new home, there is also a new order. And with every box packed at Kensington, another layer of the old structure is being dismantled. In the absence of grand speeches or proclamations, the crown is slowly shifting. Not in coronations, but in corridors. Not in gold, but in strategy. And as the Wales family settles into Windsor's ancient halls, another silent evolution is underway, where the throne is not yet inherited, but already felt. Charles steps back. William steps in. In November 2025, palace watchers began to notice a pattern. King Charles, already scaling back engagements since August, was now absent from 3 major state events in a row. His signature red dispatch box, once delivered to Birkhall Daily, was rerouted to Windsor Castle and into Prince William's private office. The heir was no longer shadowing. He was chairing. And for those on the inside, it marked the beginning of what some now call a soft regency. The term, while unofficial, carries weight. Historically, regencies occur only when a monarch is deemed unfit to rule. But in this case, it is a functional transition, with Charles remaining monarch in title, but allowing William to lead in practice. The court circular shows a sharp uptick in William's appearances, including 6 closed-door meetings with the Prime Minister in just 8 weeks. Aides confirm he now plays a central role in planning the 2026 royal calendar. Importantly, Charles has not resisted this shift, but he has not embraced it either. Palace insiders describe the king as resigned rather than reassured. The decision to approve the Windsor move reportedly came after a long meeting with William and Catherine at Highgrove House in late September. Charles understood the symbolism, but it stung. For a monarch who waited 70 years to ascend, watching his son step forward so quickly evokes complex emotions, respect perhaps, but also regret. This moment mirrors history more than the public might realize. In the 1820s, George IV allowed his son to quietly assume many duties before formal succession. In the early 20th century, Queen Elizabeth's own ascent began not with her father's passing, but during her strategic relocation to Windsor and assumption of key public roles. Today, William walks the same path. But unlike his predecessors, he is not just stepping into a role. He is stepping into an expectation. And behind every great transition stands a formidable partner. As William moves into leadership, Catherine is not simply following. She is forging a parallel ascent, one less visible but equally profound. While cameras capture the walkabouts and photo calls, it is inside the palace walls that her reign has begun, in spreadsheets, guest lists, and legacy plans. If William now leads the crown in public, Catherine is reshaping it in private, an invisible queen-in-waiting, preparing for an inevitable dawn. Catherine's role expands behind the scenes. As autumn 2025 unfolded, it became increasingly clear that Catherine, Princess of Wales, was no longer operating in the traditional mold of a royal consort. With her return to public duties following a brief medical pause in early September, she has simultaneously taken on a formidable behind-the-scenes role. Insiders confirm that since October 1st, she has overseen the reorganization of 3 core palace departments, including interior planning, diplomatic hosting, and staff hierarchy at the new residence. Much of her time has been spent within Windsor Castle's East Wing, where a temporary royal planning suite has been installed. Catherine now meets weekly with the royal household's chief operating officer, an unprecedented move for a consort. She is personally curating the visual and symbolic language of the palace, from artwork to floral arrangements, ensuring that every corridor reflects a monarchy in evolution. 5 new staff members, including a sustainability advisor and a modern art curator, have been hired at her request. Perhaps most significantly, Catherine has begun representing the monarchy in small but pivotal diplomatic moments. In October alone, she held solo meetings with delegations from Canada, Denmark, and South Korea, none of which included Charles or Camilla. These engagements, while deliberately low profile, are anything but casual. According to royal insiders, Catherine now prepares briefing dossiers herself, sometimes with William, but often independently, signaling her emergence as a strategic royal operator. Sources close to the Wales household note that Catherine's authority has increased not through declarations, but through constancy. She's present in every decision now, one aide shared, from uniforms to upholstery, from guest lists to garden design. Her fingerprints are on every layer of the palace's transformation. It is, they say, the beginning of her reign, not in name, but in influence, not in public pageantry, but in private command. But not everyone sees this quiet dominance as progress. As Catherine rises, others feel displaced, particularly those who once defined the court's inner circle. For the senior royals left out of these decisions, the pace and secrecy of the Wales's ascent have stirred unease. And for one figure in particular, Princess Anne, the unfolding events feel less like evolution and more like upheaval. The royal family, known for tradition, is confronting a shift that neither age nor rank was prepared to resist. Princess Anne and other royals caught off guard. In the days following the Wales's announcement, a noticeable chill spread through St. James's Palace, where Princess Anne has long held quiet influence. Known as the monarchy's hardest-working royal, Anne was, according to close sources, not informed in advance of the Windsor move. The revelation came to her via a palace bulletin issued at 9:15 a.m., a full 72 hours after William had finalized renovation plans with senior aides. For a woman steeped in protocol, the breach was more than procedural. It was personal. Anne's inner circle reportedly described her reaction as curt and unreadable. But aides noted that her scheduled engagements that week, 7 in total across Norfolk and Scotland, were executed with even sharper precision than usual. Royal observers interpret this as her way of signaling disapproval without open dissent. Those close to her believe Anne sees the accelerated centralization of power around William and Catherine as too much, too fast, especially while King Charles, her older brother, remains alive and formally reigning. The shock extended beyond Anne. Prince Edward and Sophie, Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, also found themselves blindsided. The couple had quietly hoped for a stronger post-Charles role, particularly in regional representation and property access. Now they face uncertainty. As Windsor becomes William's operational base, questions arise over whether Bagshot Park, their current residence, may be reassessed within the broader realignment of royal estates. One aide warned, "It's the beginning of a leaner monarchy. Some will be edged out." Within the extended family, unease is growing over what insiders call the Core Four model: William, Catherine, and their two eldest children, George and Charlotte, as the nucleus of royal planning. Others, once granted grace and favor residences or ceremonial duties, fear being phased out. With limited royal properties and rising public scrutiny over taxpayer-funded homes, a ruthless restructuring seems inevitable. The Wales's ascension is not merely symbolic, it's logistical, and for some royals, it spells the end of inherited privilege. Yet among those most shaken by the power shift, none feel it more deeply, or more personally, than Queen Camilla. Once the axis of Charles's modern court, she now finds herself sidelined by a new generation whose vision leaves little room for compromise. As her influence begins to fade from the palace's daily rhythms, Camilla's private response has been measured, but unmistakably bitter. For her, the rise of the Waleses is not just transition, it's erasure. Camilla's private reaction. Inside Clarence House, behind the floral chintz and afternoon teas, Camilla's reaction to the Windsor move has been described as visibly strained. While she made no public statement, those closest to her say she views the relocation as yet another maneuver to reduce her standing. After nearly 2 decades of climbing the ranks from pariah to queen consort, the speed of her marginalization under the Wales-led transition feels abrupt, even humiliating. One aide described her mood as eclipsed. Camilla reportedly voiced concerns to Charles during a private weekend at Birkhall in late October, where discussions turned tense. She emphasized the lack of inclusion of her family, particularly her daughter, Laura Lopes, and her grandchildren, in the future vision of the monarchy. Previously allowed limited access to royal events and properties, Laura is now expected to lose several grace and favor privileges, including access to Ray Mill House's adjacent royal land. To Camilla, this signals a deliberate severing. Sources say Camilla fears that history is repeating itself. Just as she once displaced Diana in public perception, she now feels herself being overshadowed by the very woman Diana's legacy empowered, Catherine. The Queen Consort has reportedly withdrawn from several internal planning meetings and has not hosted a formal royal dinner since early September 2025. Her diary, once bustling with patronage events, has thinned. One aide whispered, "She's watching the walls close in." Yet even as her visibility wanes, Camilla remains a savvy operator. There are whispers that she's working to secure her legacy through the Queen's Reading Room Foundation, pushing for it to become a permanent royal institution. But the writing is on the palace walls. With Charles focusing on historical legacy and personal peace, Camilla's place in the evolving court is shrinking. The Waleses are not pushing her out with malice, but they are not pulling her in either. Outside the palace gates, however, the mood is markedly different. For the British public, especially a generation raised on Diana's warmth and William's quiet dignity, the shift is not only welcome, but exhilarating. As the monarchy becomes younger, leaner, and more emotionally in tune, a renewed sense of optimism is taking root. And as the Waleses prepare to throw open the doors of their new royal home, the people who once felt excluded are now being invited in. The public celebrates the new royal home. As news of the Windsor relocation filtered beyond palace walls, public sentiment surged. By November 2nd, 2025, social media was ablaze with hashtags like hashtag #WalesWindsor-era and hashtag #FutureMonarchs, reflecting nationwide excitement. An instant YouGov poll showed William and Catherine's approval ratings rising to 83%, with support especially strong among 18 to 35-year-olds. The public sees the move not as a disruption, but as a promise. A bridge between the institution's past and a more relatable, modern future. The choice of Windsor Castle, historically associated with Queen Elizabeth II's wartime resilience, resonates with many Britons who see echoes of duty and tradition in the Waleses. "It feels like Diana would be proud," said a woman outside Buckingham Palace, holding a handmade sign that read "New Royals." Same heart. The symbolism is unmistakable. Windsor, while grand, holds a familial warmth. Its gardens, stables, and chapel feel more lived in than ceremonial. For the public, it's a palace that can still feel like a home. To build on the momentum, aides have already outlined plans for seasonal public tours beginning in spring 2026, along with digital walkthroughs and behind-the-scenes footage to be released via the royal family's official YouTube and Instagram channels. Catherine is personally spearheading a new transparency initiative, ensuring the monarchy feels less like a relic and more like a living institution. Events hosted at Windsor, including a New Year's garden reception and an Easter open day, will welcome youth leaders, NHS workers, and international students. The Wales' approach is a marked departure from the often formal, inaccessible air of previous reigns. They are crafting a monarchy not just to preserve, but to participate, one that speaks the language of public service, parenting, climate awareness, and diplomacy. For millions across the UK, especially in a post-Brexit, post-pandemic Britain, the shift feels stabilizing. William and Catherine are not just preparing to lead. They are inviting the nation to walk beside them. This quiet revolution, welcomed by the public, finds its power not just in popularity, but in precedent. For William and Catherine are not the first to step into leadership through place rather than proclamation. The monarchy has always whispered its transitions before it thundered them. And history, as it turns out, has been here before. Inside the same castle walls, under the same uncertain skies, with another young heir being quietly prepared to rule. How Queen Elizabeth prepared for her reign. Long before the internet, press leaks, and televised addresses, royal transitions happened behind closed doors and castle gates. In 1940, amid the turmoil of World War II, the then Princess Elizabeth was quietly relocated to Windsor Castle, away from London's air raids. It was not just for safety, it was symbolic. At only 14 years old, Elizabeth began her apprenticeship in duty, held in the quiet confidence of Windsor's shadowed halls. Now, nearly 85 years later, William and Catherine are repeating that quiet choreography. Royal historians have long noted that relocations often precede reigns. Queen Victoria, too, withdrew to Osborne House as she assumed full sovereign control following Prince Albert's death in 1861. George VI moved operations to Windsor during the darkest days of war, setting the stage for a monarchy built on resolve. These strategic withdrawals were not abdications, but evolutions. Spaces where heirs could test authority, absorb history, and forge new approaches to rule without premature ceremony. In this context, William and Catherine's move is less radical than it seems. By stepping into Windsor, they step into a legacy of transformation. But their version is infused with modern touchpoints, environmental design, digital diplomacy, and a focus on soft power over protocol. The Waleses are crafting a 21st century model of monarchy, one built on presence rather than pronouncement. As the castle once trained a future queen, so now it shapes a future king and queen consort. This deliberate mirroring of Elizabeth's wartime presence at Windsor does more than honor tradition. It broadcasts readiness. No official regency has been declared. No abdication is planned. But the world doesn't need a crown ceremony to see what's coming. The baton, if not passed, has already been extended. And just as Elizabeth once learned leadership by watching her father's footsteps fade, so too do William and Catherine now prepare for a throne that already waits. But it's not only William and Catherine who are being shaped by Windsor's stone corridors. Their children, the heirs and spares of a future dynasty, are also being quietly recast by the move. In the castle's classrooms, gardens, and private chapels, the next generation of monarchy is learning to walk, speak, and serve like royalty. And for one child in particular, Prince George, the lessons have already begun in earnest. What the move means for the children. For Prince George, the transition to Windsor marks a significant shift in his royal upbringing. Now 12 years old and entering year 8 at a private preparatory school just minutes from the castle gates, George is being tutored weekly in constitutional law, foreign affairs, and ceremonial protocol. Palace aides confirm he has already observed 3 weekly briefings between his father and senior staff. His schedule now includes monthly one-on-ones with Sir Clive Alderton, the King's private secretary, a clear signal of early grooming. Princess Charlotte, now 10, is said to be embracing her new environment with grace and curiosity. Courtiers speculate she may eventually inherit key patronages previously held by Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Margaret, including those focused on the arts, education, and equine charities. Charlotte has begun attending select events with Catherine, including a recent Youth Climate Forum held on Windsor grounds in mid-October. Observers noted her poised demeanor, describing her as already carrying herself like a working royal. Prince Louis, the youngest at 7 years old, may be years away from formal duties, but his formative years at Windsor will be steeped in tradition. From weekly chapel services at St. George's Chapel to daily interactions with palace staff and guards, Louis will be raised in what one aide calls a fully immersive royal ecosystem. His playroom reportedly includes miniature replicas of royal thrones, robes, and even a scaled-down coronation coach, equal parts education and enchantment. This relocation is not simply logistical, it's a generational investment. The children will now be educated, mentored, and matured under constant but careful watch. Unlike their parents, who grew up in the chaotic shadow of scandal and separation, the next generation is being raised within order, legacy, and strategic intention. In the halls of Windsor, they will not just inherit history, they will learn how to wear it. As the children grow, so too does the shape of the monarchy they will one day inherit. And within the towering walls of Windsor, a new court is quietly forming. Not just a household, but a center of strategy, culture, and command. With each passing day, the palace becomes less a symbol of what was, and more the blueprint of what will be. The Waleses are not simply moving in, they are taking over. A new royal court begins to take shape. By November's end, Windsor Castle no longer feels like a seasonal residence. It feels like headquarters. Since the move, over 20 staff from Buckingham and Clarence House have been reassigned to Windsor, forming a new court under the Wales' direction. This includes communications officers, security detail leads, foreign liaison aides, and charity coordinators. With Charles III scaling back and Camilla retreating from public visibility, the gravitational pull of royal power has firmly shifted west. Windsor is now more than a home. It is the epicenter of planning, diplomacy, and soft governance. Daily briefings are held at 7:45 a.m., with William chairing strategy calls, Catherine attending weekly patronage debriefs, and a consolidated senior aid team mapping out the next 18 months of public and international engagements. Notably, several high-ranking staff from Clarence House have quietly accepted new positions or retirement packages, further signaling the court consolidation under the Waleses. This isn't palace intrigue. It's succession in slow motion. But make no mistake, it's happening. Every subtle maneuver, every speech given by William in Charles's absence, every solo hosting by Catherine, and every appearance of their children is a quiet coronation in progress. For the first time since 1952, the monarchy's operational power is held by those not yet formally crowned. And the public, not to mention the world, is watching. The monarchy is not just being modernized, it is being redefined. From Windsor Castle, William and Catherine are writing a new chapter in royal history, one that echoes the best of the past, but speaks in the voice of the future. There will be no trumpets for this transformation. Only open doors, full calendars, and a family poised to lead. The crown has not yet changed heads, but the court has already changed hands. As the royal landscape reshapes itself behind centuries-old palace walls, one thing is certain: the House of Windsor is entering a bold new era, with Windsor Castle emerging as the beating heart of William and Catherine's expanding influence. Their vision for the monarchy is no longer theoretical. It's happening now. Behind the scenes, alliances are shifting, old titles are fading, and a new royal court is quietly consolidating. The world may not see a coronation tomorrow, but make no mistake, the next reign has already begun. And with the public on their side, the Waleses are just getting started.